Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this is going to be a Diablo 4 video talking about the general state of things. We'll look at some data on how Diablo 4 compares to the launch of Diablo 3. Are things dire? Are things still amazing? Are there concerns? What should we be thinking about as we head into the seasons? And what is kind of going to be coming down the road for us in the future of Diablo 4, both near and also a year from now, and all of the different topics revolving around the sentiment of Diablo 4 currently. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so recently you may have noticed a little bit of a shift in the trend or narrative around Diablo 4. We're starting to see a lot of the content creators and community figures and some of the big creators that cover the game start to talk about they're done, they're quitting until seasons, or season 1 is going to make or break for Diablo 4. And we're starting to see some cracks show in Diablo 4 because during the honeymoon phase, it was nothing but sunshine and roses. Diablo 4 was getting insane reviews on like every website that was reviewing it for the most part, and mostly every large content creator was loving the game and excited for the game and grinding it nonstop, and the community seemed to be having fun, and some of the issues weren't able to show themselves. They were disguised a little bit because when you can only get to level 25, you can't get into the end game and you can't grind all the way to level 100. And as more and more people do that, some of these cracks start to show where there doesn't seem to be quite as much as we were hoping to keep people invested for weeks and months. And as more and more people get to that point where they're level 85 plus, we start to see a little bit of a dip in the interest for Diablo 4 here on the first kind of month or two of the game. But then before we talk about some of the reasons this is happening or some of the things that we can expect in the future, I want to compare things to Diablo 3. Now, I was around for the launch of Diablo 3. I remember very vividly the launch night of Diablo 3, landing in my apartment. I was in college and had some friends bring their computers over. We stood in line at Best Buy to purchase the game for a midnight release. Diablo 3 is actually the last game that I bought a physical copy of and installed with a CD in my PC. Diablo 3 was the last one that I bought an actual box copy of the game. But yeah, anyway, for those of you that weren't around for the launch of Diablo 3 or didn't play Diablo 3 when it first came out, the issues that Diablo 4 is having are literally nothing compared to Diablo 3. Like, I understand there's been some server issues and there's been some rubber banding and there's been some memory leaks and stuff like that. But Diablo 3 was leaps and bounds worse. So that night that friends came over to LAN at my apartment, we literally couldn't even play until like 6 or 7 a.m. We stayed up all night trying to play, and eventually we just said screw it. And you'd be able to play for like 5 minutes, and then you would get some error and get booted and be back into queue, and it was just an absolute disaster. And then also Diablo 3 launched with 2 different versions of an in-game auction house. You had where you could trade for gold, you could like list an item for sale on the auction house and buy it for gold, or they had a real money auction house. You could literally buy items for, I think the price went all the way from like $1, or maybe it went down to pennies, but it went from like 1 penny to $250. And then you had people selling things on forums. Like there was very famously an Echoing Fury weapon, I think, that went for like 8,000 or like 8,500 euro and like 10,000 USD, something like that. But yeah, there was like a $10,000 Echoing Fury weapon that got sold during that first year of Diablo 3. But yeah, issues aside, how did the launch of Diablo 3 actually go in terms of web traffic, which is a decent way, no metric is perfect, but it's a decent way to see the general kind of velocity of the community within the game. And we can see here that the peak was the week of May 13 to May 19, and that is the actual live release of Diablo 3. You see back here, you probably had a couple little like betas and stuff or announcements. And then right here, you had the full release on that week. I think it came out like May 11th or May 12th or something. And it hit its peak right there. By far, Diablo 3 never even approached remotely close to as popular as its launch week. And then if I shift the chart a little bit over to the right, you can see that it's at 27 out of 100. So the game lost about 73% of its web traffic within 1 month after launch. So now we can look at Diablo 4 and we have about a month to compare since the launch, because the game kind of came out just over about exactly a month ago. So now you can see right up there that I swapped it on over to Diablo 4, and we see the peak of 100 obviously on the full release week of the game. And then, so that's June 4th, and we go over about a month, just under a month, but we're at 50. So Diablo 4 has lost about exactly half of its web traffic velocity here in the last month or so. So it's honestly going a lot better than Diablo 3 that lost like 70 something percent of its web velocity within a month. So I think the reason for that is that Diablo 4, like I said, it was received a lot more positively. Diablo 3 was received insanely negatively. It was covered by all of the bigger content creators and all of the outlets out there. It was nothing but negativity because of the bugs and the crashing and the real money trading and all of that. So honestly, that ends up being a little bit of good news for Diablo 4 because Diablo 3 did have a horrible first impression, and it wasn't the game that everybody probably kind of hoped it was going to be in the Diablo franchise, but it did end up having a very robust and good community for over 10 years. And a lot of people kind of feel that once Seasons launched in the game, once Reaper of Souls came out, once the expansion pack came out, they added Necromancer and they kind of fleshed out all of the systems. It became a pretty solid game. Not amazing, not the godliest game you've ever played, but I think it was a top 10 selling PC game of all time, and it had a very solid community for over 10 years. So I do think everything is still out there for the taking, and there are good days ahead for Diablo 4 because it doesn't seem to be dying as fast as Diablo 3 did after launch. By the way, it's very typical for a game to have a big dip after launch. Obviously, it's not rocket science that on the launch week of the game, when you have everybody interested in trying out a game, it's going to be insanely popular. And then you have all of the people that are just looking for something new to try that take off, and they're not really going to be part of the community long term. So really not surprising that we see a big dip after a big name release happens. It's perfectly normal. But that also doesn't mean there aren't any concerns or there aren't any issues to talk about. And I also want to discuss that for a little bit. And right now, I want to talk about the 4 main concerns that are causing a negative sentiment in Diablo 4 and give you my thoughts as to why. And then we'll talk about what I think the next 6 months to a year is going to look like for Diablo 4 as we head into the launch of Seasons and all that. So first of all, I think the lack of social features is really crushing the community a little bit. There isn't a good way in game to find friends and interact with people and form groups and have robust chat communities and channels and stuff like that. Like for Diablo Immortal, the social aspect was a lot better than it is in Diablo 4, and it wasn't perfect in Diablo Immortal. Diablo 4 just feels a little bit too isolationist for an open world environment where you're running into other players. So they're going to definitely want to address some social features and help the community feel a little bit more alive in game. And then secondly, the lack of an economy. So there is some economy. It's not fully locked like Diablo 3 became eventually, where you could only trade kind of in your party, but there really isn't a robust economy in Diablo 4. It's not like Path of Exile or Diablo 2, where you've got this constant economy with all of these different currencies going on in something like Path of Exile and all of that. We need to be able to trade things like aspects and be able to trade a little bit more freely within our clans or our friends list or something like that. Like you should be able to trade within your clan, like with everybody that's in the clan when it drops. Obviously, you don't want to open yourself up too much to like botting operations. So I think maybe if somebody's in your clan for like a 72-hour cooldown or something, if they're in your clan for 3 days, now all of a sudden everything that drops for everybody while they're in a clan, they can trade amongst themselves and all of that, or help us trade aspects and things like that. Just some sort of way for us to have a little bit more robust of an economy within the community of Diablo 4. And then right now, the lack of an end game. So once people hit World Tier 4, they hit level 75, 80, they start to feel like, okay, I've got my ancestral gear and I've got my build and I've kind of finished. What am I getting for continuing to play and grind up to level 100? There's really no leaderboards. There's nothing to chase after. And people start to feel like they've already kind of finished the game around level 85 or 90 typically. So I think the end game is going to definitely need to become more robust sooner than later to keep people interested after they hit that level 80, 85, 90 point of the game. And then the fourth one I wanted to mention was the lack of leaderboards. Now, some people are going to disagree with me and think this isn't a big deal, but I honestly do think the lack of leaderboards is a big deal, because even for the people that don't care about pursuing rank 1 or top 10, or they don't care about competing in the leaderboards, what the leaderboards do is they breathe a life into the discussion around the community. Like, oh, wow, did you see so-and-so put up a Nightmare Sigil 99 on this build? I had no idea that was even a thing. Or, oh, wow, did you see this content creator cleared Nightmare level 100 on a day 6 of the game being out? And what it does is it enables you to compare what different classes are doing and what different builds are doing, what different people in your friends list and your clan and what different content creators and what is happening within the game, within the community. Leaderboards unlock that for everyone, even the people that aren't interested in competing in the leaderboards. It gives life to the community and different things to pay attention to and discuss. So now let's talk about maybe what the near future could hold for Diablo 4, because I think right now everything's been mostly pretty much expected. The game had some issues, but a mostly positive honeymoon phase. And then the game is still going to need a lot of quality of life things and fleshing out of the different systems to be able to keep people's attention long term. But this is perfectly normal within ARPGs. Even though we don't like it, we wish it could grab our attention for a year at a time. The way ARPGs end up kind of settling in, whether it's Path of Exile with their League resets, or Diablo 2 with their ladder resets, or Diablo 3 with their season resets, what we usually see is the game booms hard for a month or two, and then it really kind of nosedives and falls off a little bit for a month or two, and then they do a season reset, a league reset, a ladder reset, and the game booms again for a month or two, and this ends up kind of being the cycle. So right now, Diablo 4 is on a little bit of a downturn as we kind of move into that next boom, which is going to be the Season 1 reset. And the Season 1 reset is probably going to happen somewhere between July 20th and July 30th, somewhere in there, the last 10 days of July. We will get Season 1 and things will reset. Now, I think it's going to be important for Blizzard to do something to hype people up. It can't just be this version of Diablo 4. Boom, we reset, everybody go do it again. We need things like World Tier 5, which has been leaked. We need those 3 new levels of gem levels, which have been leaked. We need some sort of new mechanic. I understand they're not going to be able to like overhaul something ridiculously huge by Season 1, but we need some sort of new mechanic and new difficulty like World Tier 5 and new things to the game that will hype people up and generate some discussion again. And after that happens, we will see a big boost in Diablo 4 for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then it'll probably start to die off and slow down a little bit until Season 2. Now, in Season 2, I don't think we're going to have leaderboards until Season 3, but what that means is Season 2, at that point, they're going to need to release something big. So Season 1 is going to be probably mostly August, September, and October. And then in November, we're going to see Season 2 launch. And at that point, heading into the winter and the holiday season and a little bit of a ramp up time for games in general, because you've got kids that are out of school, you've got college students that are on break, you've got people getting vacation time from work for Christmas and New Year's Eve, and you've got the weather getting colder outside in a lot of different areas, so people are indoors more often. There's usually a little bit of an uptick in gaming in November, December, and January, and that will be when Season 2 is going to be taking place. So what they're going to need to do at that point is release some sort of big game-changing mechanic, because there won't be leaderboards yet. Right now, we think there's going to be leaderboards on Season 3. So that will be the big thing on Season 3. You'll have November, December, January. That'll be Season 2. And then February, March, and April, that will be Season 3. That will be when the community opens up to competing and comparing and going against each other for a season reset. And I hope when they introduce leaderboards, they do it right, like being able to sort it by your friends group, or sort it by all the different classes, or sort it by your clan, and be able to compare how everybody kind of in your social circle and the Diablo 4 community at large is doing. But I expect that to come in February of 2024 and be a pretty big change to the landscape of Diablo 4 and its seasons. So that is my thoughts on kind of everything happening in the overall landscape of Diablo 4 currently and what to expect in the future. If you enjoyed this video, it would mean a lot to earn your subscription today down below. But as always, I appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you soon in the next Diablo 4 video. I've got a lot of stuff coming up. We're going to try speed running different classes on how to start efficiently for Season 1 and different season starter builds and tier lists and guides and all that that sort of stuff coming up here on a daily basis on the channel. So I'm still definitely hopeful. I love Diablo 4. I think it's going to be great long term. I just wanted to give you my thoughts and opinions and expectations of everything as we head into the future here for Diablo 4. So thanks for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Peace.